And now we have Melissa DeRosa, John.
She's one tough gal.
How are we doing?
Melissa, you're one tough gal.
Yeah, we love that. He likes tough women. One sitting next to him to his right.
He
but
sure
go ahead.
does, Rita, doesn't he?
He does. He does. You wrote a really powerful column. And, of course, Melissa was the right-hand gal to then Governor Cuomo, great political expert. Melissa, explain your column because it's making a lot of headway.
Sure, Rita. So, look, and as I said in the first line of my column, I really don't want to write this column because it pains me that this is where we are. But it feels sort of like, the old mantra of you're never going to solve a problem you're unwilling to admit. And I think that a lot of how we got here is that there were a lot of people who were unwilling to admit the reality of where Joe Biden currently is as an 81-year-old president and whether or not he has the capacity to carry through the next 4 years. And, the column sort of lays out, I think that there are a lot of theys to blame. There's the they in the White House, the DNC, the campaign, high-level senators and Congress people like Chuck Schumer and who knows who else, cabinet members. And then there's the they in the media. And those who had, the most access to him in the White House press corps and in favored mainstream and liberal-leaning media outlets. And so, I sort of identified, because there are a lot of people who are saying, how did we get here? This is how. People knew. We all watched for last week for 90 minutes, and a lot of the country, myself included, sort of did it in a stunned stare. But there were people who were aware. And since the debate, a number of people have come forward to certain reporters and said there were 10 people who knew, there were 15 people who knew, all who, went to Ron Klain and others and were sort of shooed away. And I think that, and then, by the way, Jill Abramson, who used to be the head of the New York Times, put out a statement yesterday.
What about Carl Bernstein? Carl Bernstein.
Carl Bernstein went out and said that. And then Jill Abramson, who from the New York Times went out and said, sort of took the White House to task for this massive cover-up, but then also took the media to task for not covering it. But I thought what the most breathtaking statement that she had embedded in her long diatribe was when she said, I fear that the media didn't want to cover this story because they didn't want to look like they were helping Trump. And I get that. And when I read that line, I was like, you get that? Really? Because
wow.
by saying that out loud,
that's astounding.
You're acknowledging exactly the bias inherent in the mainstream and liberal media, which is what, Donald Trump has been saying since 2016 with the fake news, et cetera. And so in an environment where everyone, is in a place where nobody trusts the government, nobody trusts the media, nobody trusts the justice system, this whole debacle that started to, unravel on Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern time and has carried through to this moment and will continue to carry on forward, I think has done nothing but undermine the entire system and potentially cost Democrats, the election. All in 90 minutes.
Do you think he's going to stay or go? Because now, I don't know if you saw, but at first it was New York Times this morning. Now CNN is saying something similar, that he's telling allies he's weighing whether to stay in the race. What do you think happens to him?
I think that right now he is fighting for his political life. I think that, they went out Friday, Saturday. They thought they were doing certain things to signal that they were full steam ahead. In some ways, they were the right things. In other ways, they were the wrong things. I would argue he shouldn't have been out in curated audiences. He shouldn't have been using a teleprompter. If you're going to try to send a message that what we saw on Thursday night was an aberration, then prove that what we saw on Thursday night was an aberration. Don't go to the Hamptons and use a teleprompter and don't take questions and leave. Don't, decide which press is in and out. And then, he huddled at Camp David. So I think that, he put this interview on with Stephanopoulos, which I think is a mistake. I have a tremendous amount of respect for George Stephanopoulos as a journalist, as a former public servant, but he's also a former Clinton aide, and it's a pre-taped interview, which for those who want to see shadows, which at this point in the American public, no one trusts the news, you're going to give them, ample reason not to, and for no good reason.
Yeah, do a press conference, right? What he should do. And you know what's sad? And I say this, Melissa, because I want the best for our country. I want the president to look strong, who's the president of our country. He should say, I'm coming out tomorrow. This is what Trump would do. He would say, I'm coming out tomorrow and doing a 2-hour, 3-hour press conference and take whatever questions. The fact he is clearly not doing that, and he's doing these 3-minute teleprompter, it shows that he's not capable. It's actually almost worse than the debate. It's reinforcing what we saw in the debate, or maybe even worse.
Melissa, this is Rudy Washington.
Sorry, go ahead, Rudy. Yep.
People are forgetting that he ran the campaign in 2020.
From the basement.
From the basement.
Yes.
There was a reason for that.
Yep.
It took him 3 days to get stabilized to meet the governors and the leaders of the party. They couldn't put him out the next day. He was a wreck.
Yeah, this is really, and Melissa, we just have a few seconds left real quick.
No, I would just say, look, I think 4 years ago, and if you look at the debate tape between he and Donald Trump 4 years ago, it was a very different Joe Biden. But if they want to put to rest that if this was an aberration, they're going to have to prove it. It can't be so scripted. He's going to have to go out. He's going to have to take questions from unfriendly media. He's going to have to not speak from a teleprompter. And short of that, I mean, it's just a slow, walk to being a loser. And that could take the House with them, and that could, upend everything.
Yep.
So Republicans could end up controlling all 3 branches of government. So the stakes have never been higher, and it's not looking good right now.
Yeah, it sure isn't. Melissa, thank you for being here and for your honesty. We love having you on. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you, guys. Happy 4th.